So that is pretty awesome looking.
Can't believe this is happening.
Yeah! Back to staff inspection. Now that the S14 is all squared away, we got the Raptor dialed in. It's time to get back to my original love, the M3. So you might have caught some episodes that we did earlier on this, before going to Super Lap Battle last year in November, where we put the Evolve Carbon airbox on and an APR wing. Then we took it out to Super Lap and the car ran a 157.6 at Buttonwillow, clockwise 13, which I was pretty stoked on. Now I want to get back into this car and start strategically removing weight from it, but keeping AC, heat, radio, power windows and locks and all that stuff, carpet. I want to keep this a true street car, but I want to find ways where I could pluck weight out here and there and see if I can find more time. Goal is to get to like a 155 if I could get there before it gets too hot. First order of business is Scotto's working on his Audi, and he's got this guy here. May remember him from Knuckle Busters.
What's going on?
Graham Downey works with Matt Field and is actually a shredder on his own. He came down here to straighten out Scotto's car, and he brought his scales.
Yeah, we're gonna measure your E46. We have no idea what it's gonna weigh.
What do you think it weighs?
3150?
No chance.
More?
More. I'm thinking 3280. It's basically half tank.
Okay.
Just under. So now we're gonna throw the car on the scales, see what this thing weighs, and the number is no way. Well, you were right.
I was within 13 pounds.
Professional. Back when I did the first corner balance on this car, like DT episode number like 35, it was 3180.
Let's watch Vinny's fat get in here.
God, this is when everyone's gonna be like, that fat he said he was 215. And it didn't have a roll bar, didn't have aero, didn't have big brakes, and it didn't have harnesses. Man, so I guess we kind of netted out pretty evenly. That's lighter than I thought. That gives me a lot of hope. All right. How's that weight balance? What do you think about these numbers?
It's all right, but what really matters is when you're in it.
This is what the internet's gonna be like. You got fat and you used to be 200 pounds.
3395. 51.6 cross, 51.4 left to right, 52.6 front to back. So let's go to wheel weights. Not bad. Your left front wheel is 891 and this is 896. Just your right rear corner is light.
I had a heavier battery in it. I had the stock battery.
Oh, which is in the back corner.
Yeah, back right corner.
Yeah, so that's, you can see right here, it's not much different with you out, but when you're in, it's quite a bit lighter on the right rear.
Cool. So what do you think? What would you recommend to shave some weight off this car as is without gutting it or anything?
Okay, well maybe we can reduce a little unsprung weight, rotational mass.
Brakes, wheels.
Brakes. We could go, you do have massive brakes on here.
Could go smaller brake. What about roll bar? You think it's worth saving any weight on a roll bar?
Here's the thing, you got added weight, but it also adds a little rigidity to the car, right? A little structure to it. So
yeah.
It is a beefy roll bar with the X and the 1 3/4 tube. Is it bolted in?
It's a bolt-in, yeah. But so I was thinking maybe do 1.5 inches with no X, even though the X kind of looks cool, but we'd probably be able to shave like what, 20 pounds off going to 1.5 inches?
Yeah.
And no X, maybe 20 pounds?
Yeah, maybe 20. Is that worth it to do all that work to remake it, to save 20 pounds?
No, I actually was gonna sell this roll bar to my buddy, and then I got lazy and decided I didn't want to pull it out and remake a bar for 20 pounds. I'm gonna have to get a little tactful on this and figure out what we're gonna do. If I could get this down to 3.0 something without me in it, I'd be really stoked. So one thing I was also considering is like doing a custom door panel, but I don't want to delete the door panel. I was just kind of thinking about like getting a piece of carbon and cutting the door panel here, and then running like a door panel, you know, just a flat piece of carbon down there.
Right.
Also, I got this thing and a floor mat.
I mean, Vin, how often do you drive with a passenger?
Rarely ever.
So we could, when we go to the track, take the passenger seat, the belts, the brackets out.
That's probably another 20 pounds.
At least 20 pounds.
Look at that, just shave 1 pound. All right, took out the side panels on the trunk and this stuff. And that actually got us down to 3157. And I don't mind taking out that stuff because I could actually just pop that back in after track days. I usually pull all of that stuff out anyways and then just put it back in. So under the hood, there's really not much to lose. We got the Evolve carbon airbox, and then I did a rain tray delete here also. So that probably takes out another like 8 or so pounds.
What is this?
Headlight ballast.
Oh.
Strut tower bars, aluminum. It's already cracked, so I do think I need a new one. I mean, I could take off like the auxiliary fan while racing.
And you mentioned you don't want to lose creature comforts, so you're not willing to sacrifice AC, right?
No, AC is definitely staying in.
Power steering.
Power steering staying in.
Which is good. That's a good driver aid. Power windows you want to keep.
Yep.
We're gonna have our work cut out for us if we're gonna try to lose weight keeping all that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like radio and speakers could come out. And then beyond just taking stuff out of this car, I have to do a lot of maintenance to this thing. This car has been really good to me. I've had this car out to the track probably 20 times in the last year, and all I've done was tires, brake pads, and oil changes, and that's a really good car. I do owe it a little bit of work. I have to do, my rear axle CV is ripped. I should do all new wheel bearings. I do want to change some bushings that I haven't done. I kind of went through this chassis when I first got the car and changed all the bushings, but there are things like the spring perch mounts and the ball joints and stuff like that that are all old. And the car has 130,000 miles on it. So that stuff I'm going to address as well. So that's not really shaving weight, but having a car that's really dialed and having all your bushings feel really nice and new will help, you know, keep some of that weight transition in place when you're driving. So I want to see how my alignment has held up because I haven't had any bad offs. So if everything is still good, the alignment should sort of hold up. What are we working with here?
We got 4 degrees in 5 minutes. This is essentially 4 degrees.
Okay, that's already a little bit above my original camber specs for my last alignment because we had set it to 3.8. Well, that's not a 4, so that's off, but I don't know how to read minutes, so.
So you have 3 degrees, 45 minutes. 45 minutes of 60 is 3/4.
Oh, okay.
So that's 3.75.
So that one's pretty close.
I mean, 5 minutes is like tolerance between the machines, the floor, whatever, right?
Right.
So I'd say that's well within spec. That's good.
So the front right might have moved a little bit. It's a nifty little machine. So 215.
Yeah, so you're hovering back and forth. So this is 2 1/4. Just under 2.2 to 2.25 degrees of camber. Let's say 2.2.
Okay, so that was 2.6. And I've always noticed on this car, it does have adjustable camber arms, but it always seems like I have a weird camber issue on the rear where it'll start to actually get more positive.
This side's well within, you said spec was 2.6?
Yeah.
You go, so you have 2.5.
Okay,
Right,
so
close.
a little movement, but not much.
Yeah, so maybe something moved on that side, a bushing tore, bushing is starting to stretch out.
Yeah, so I think that's what I'm gonna do. I wanna pull out the knuckles because I wanna do wheel bearings anyway, so I think I'm gonna pull out that whole assembly and push new bushings into there, replace the axle, well, the CV joint, and kind of just go through the back of the car and see where any loose ends are because I really wanna make sure that this chassis is as dialed in as possible. And then in the front, I mean, the quickest thing is the camber adjustment up here. If we had any movement, I mean, I think these ball joints are original with 130,000 miles on them. So you could see the plates aren't even though.
Yeah, this side actually has
But this has more.
more.
That's bizarre.
There you go.
I'm gonna pull this thing apart, assess what I need, and then order some parts. And we're back to the M3. Got the car in the garage. Dan's out of here for a couple days, so I figure I'm gonna take over and use the spot to get some work done on this car. So first thing I'm gonna do is actually downsize my brakes to save a ton of rotational weight. What we got here is a new setup from Stoptech. So I've seen these guys out at the track. I've been talking with Eric for a while now about saving a ton of rotational weight on the brake setup, and I finally decided to pull the trigger on it on their new trophy kit, the ST60, in this really rad nickel-plated caliper, which is super cool. I think this is actually one of the first nickel-plated calipers that is actually out to the public. So going front to a 355 mil rotor with a 6061 hat. So it's a 2-piece floating rotor design and it should save a bunch of weight. We're gonna throw them on the scale and see what I'm doing. And when I'm talking about downsizing brakes, I know that a lot of you guys know that I do have these big APs on there. And while there's really nothing wrong with them, they're just really big. They're 370 millimeter by 36 millimeter. The Stoptechs are 355 by 32. So right there, we're obviously gonna save a ton of weight. Then also you're able to change up wheels. Right now, I could really only run Titan 7s and TE 37s, which again, nothing bad about that. I just really wanna save weight. The car doesn't have a supercharger anymore. It has the Evolve Airbox. It only makes about 330 horsepower. So now I want something that is as light as possible, because with a car that doesn't make a ton of power, it's really important to try to maximize the efficiency of the weight of your car. So first thing I'm gonna do, pull these things off, throw them on the scale, see what they weigh, and we're gonna calculate how much weight we're taking off. Ron's here because I need ricer opinion on window banners. So the guys at Garage Welt, who put this car on a skateboard, sent me a bunch of windshield banners, red, checkered, and white. Ooh. I don't know which one. I was thinking red, but I kind of think checkered would be pretty hot.
I'm thinking checkered.
All right, get the car on the lift, pull the brakes off, throw them on the scales, see what they weigh. All right, so I got the front caliper and rotor off, and I'm gonna take this rotor over to go visit Johnny in shipping, throw these things on the scale, see what the weight difference is. Yo, what's up, Johnny?
What's up, man? Oh, we got the bills going on.
27.05, 17.3. Wow, and that rotor might be a little worn out too, so I don't know how much weight you'd lose by like having a little bit of a worn rotor, but that's 10 pounds per rotor, 20 on just the front axle. So yeah, let's get the rear off and bring it over here. So I got the rear off, I brought them over to the scales, and actually I was wrong. I thought the rear was 370, but it's also the same size as the Stoptech. The APs have a thinner rotor in the rear, so it's a 355/32 also. So they weigh actually within 0.1 pounds, 18.9 on the AP, 19 flat on the Stoptech. So that's fine. I mean, huge weight savings on the front axle, so that's friggin' awesome. So I'm gonna throw this back together, and then I got some new wheels I wanted to mount up, which was a little bit of my ricer reasoning for wanting to go on downsize on the brakes too. But my car used to have this really weird problem where when you would brake really hard going into a turn, it would kind of get light on the rear, and I've played around with the damping on the rear struts and rebounds and stuff, and it's, you know, I've learned to drive around it, but I'm kind of wondering if the massive difference in rotational weight front and rear could have some sort of play on that. I don't know, maybe not. I'll ask an expert, but all right, we're gonna throw this stuff back on and then mount up some new wheels and tires. So one quick tip, that something that can make such an easy job a complete nightmare is when your set screws for your rotors get stuck in your hubs, especially if you live on like a rustier coast. So Pelican Parts actually sells these stainless steel set screws. I've been running them for quite a while now and drive this car in rain and all sorts of other crap and haven't had an issue, so it actually works out really well. These just go in, screw in there real easy. And yeah, there's two of them, holds the rotor in there real nice. So yeah, it's like the cheapest upgrade you could ever do that you'll thank yourself in the future. All right, so I got the front one all bolted on. Pretty painless process. Since I had a big brake kit on the car, my front dust shield was already trimmed, so this just goes on right away. I really love the finish. I didn't fit up the brake pads yet, so I gotta go unpackage those and throw them in. I put the caliper on without the pads in it. The one cool thing is E46s are kind of known for having a front hub deflection problem, meaning when you load up the front of the car, the wheel bearing will actually have a little bit of play side to side and causes a thing called knockback, which is when the rotor, because the caliper is fixed, the rotor moves or deflects and pushes the piston back into the caliper. What happens is when you go to get on your brakes, pedal pretty much goes to the floor, gives you kind of an oh shit moment. So what I did was I went ahead and had Stoptech install 4-pound anti-knockback springs. So what that does is it puts a little spring in between the caliper and the actual piston. So if it does actually deflect, the 4-pound should be enough to push it right back up against the rotor where it belongs, so your brake pressure is right in line when you get back on the brakes again. Oh yeah, and one thing I'm really excited about. I got a new set of wheels a really long time ago, but they wouldn't fit over my brakes, so I finally get to test fit them, and hopefully my calculations were correct. I've always wanted a set of these. They're Fikse Profil 10s, and it's actually one of the lightest multi-piece wheels you can get. I weighed this, and it weighs 20.4 pounds, which is only 1.5 pounds heavier than my TE37s, which, I mean, that's pretty awesome for a multi-piece wheel. So Brant over there helped me spec these out. These are 18 by 10 ET19. He knew I was after going for as light as possible, so he actually reduced the number of bolts on the center that hold the center on, and drilled out some pockets in the back there. Yeah, got these things down to 20 pounds, which is pretty awesome. Wow. So that is pretty awesome looking. I think it may actually be rubbing the brake by like the smallest amount. Might go ahead and run like a 3 mil spacer just to be safe, because that is super close, but those things look really rad. I actually think the fitment's pretty good. Hopefully it sits just about the same as the TEs, so we'll see. All right, next day. I didn't have any grinding discs, so I had to pick one up this morning. So I called it quits last night after buttoning up the front. So first thing we're gonna do this morning is just chop this dust shield off, run the brake lines, and then we'll just mount up the caliper and rotor, get this thing done. We got all of this cleared off, cut it, hit it with a flap wheel just to sort of like deburr that a little bit, because it could be super sharp, and later when you work on your car, this is definitely the thing that just ruins your day one day when you just catch your hand on it and cut this yourself. So we're gonna mock up the rotor, run the brake line, and that should be it. Got everything on, got the system bled, picked up one of these really cheap brake bleeders. Comes with a little like metal lasso so you can strap it up in your wheel well. Honestly, it's like the best $6 you can ever spend. So I'd go ahead and get one of those. Next thing I'm gonna do is just kind of go around and make sure that everything's torqued to spec. So just grab a torque wrench and I really want to just torque things to spec, but this is great. Shit. All right, cold and windy day. We came up here to Willow Springs, Streets of Willow, for the KW Shakedown event. Thought it'd be a lot warmer for May, but got the car out here looking super sick. So originally I wanted to do button willow and try to see if I could get from a 157.6 down to a 155 by just reducing the rotational mass on the car and taking some weight out of it. But this event came first, so my current PB here is a 124.0. So we're gonna see if we get down to in the 123s, maybe a 122, and we'll see how it does. Well, I'm excited to try out the new brakes, see how this car feels. So first thing, get off the trailer, go to the driver's meeting, get out on track. back at the shop, just dropped off the car. Wasn't able to get faster than a 124 flat, which I kind of think is like topped out for that car at the current weight, but I didn't do it in the first 2 sessions, and then I just wound up having a really good time having people jump in the car and do ride-alongs and stuff, so I don't think it would have happened with the temps getting hotter and having, you know, an additional human being in the car, so another like 200 pounds. But had a rad rest of the day, just jamming out with friends. Next up, we'll dive into the drivetrain, doing a bit more with the differential, drive shaft, some more small weight reductions, and then we'll get back on track and we'll see if we can continue to make this car faster.
Look, I can't even lift this.
Stop, we're good, Grandpa. We don't want to take you to the hospital today.